Imagine giving to people the exact same amount of money, the same opportunity, the same starting point. Fast forward 10 years. One has built lasting wealth. The other has almost nothing left. What made the difference? It wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. And it certainly wasn't the money. It was the way they thought. Most people believe wealth begins in a bank account, but it doesn't. Wealth begins in the mind. Long before someone owns successful businesses, builds investments, or creates financial freedom, they have already developed a different relationship with money itself. That relationship changes everything, because money is never just money. It is choice, responsibility, opportunity, freedom, or, for some people, a source of endless anxiety. The strange thing is that money doesn't treat everyone equally. Give one person $1,000 and they'll spend it. Give another person the same $1,000 and they'll find a way to make it grow. The amount is identical. The outcome is completely different. Why? Because the difference isn't found in the wallet. It's found in the mindset. For decades, we've been told that becoming wealthy is about earning more, working harder, finding better opportunities. Those things matter, but they are not the foundation. History is filled with people who earned fortunes only to lose them. It's also filled with people who started with almost nothing, yet slowly built extraordinary wealth over time. If money alone created wealth, that wouldn't happen. The truth is far more interesting. The wealthy often think about money in ways that seem almost invisible to everyone else. They ask different questions. They notice different opportunities. They measure success differently. And perhaps most importantly, they understand something many people never do. Money is not the destination. It is a tool that can build freedom or quietly become a prison, depending on the mind that controls it. This documentary is not about secret investment strategies. It is not about becoming rich overnight, and it is certainly not about believing wealthy people are better than everyone else. It is about understanding the mental models that shape financial decisions. Because every investment, every purchase, every business, every fortune begins with a decision, and every decision begins with the way you think. If you change the way you think about money, you may eventually change the way money behaves in your life, not because money has changed, but because you have. And perhaps that is the difference that has separated those who build wealth from those who spend a lifetime chasing it. Money is a tool, not the goal. Ask most people why they want more money, and the answers sound familiar. I want to buy a better house. I want a nicer car. I want a financial security. I want to stop worrying. These are understandable goals. Money can certainly improve life. It can reduce stress, create opportunities, provide comfort. But there is an important distinction that many people never make. They see money as the finish line. The wealthy often see it as the starting point. To them, money is not the prize. It is a tool. Think about a hammer on its own. It builds nothing. Its value depends entirely on how it is used. Money works the same way in the hands of one person. It disappears almost as quickly as it arrives in the hands of another. It becomes a business and investment, a new opportunity, the same amount of money, two completely different outcomes. The difference is rarely the tool. It is the person using it. This is why earning more does not automatically create wealth. Many people spend years chasing higher salaries, only to discover that their expenses rise just as quickly. Every increase in income is followed by a larger house, a newer car, more subscriptions, more luxury, more obligations. The income grows, but freedom does not. This is one of the quietest traps in modern life. The more you earn, the more you believe you can afford, and before long, your lifestyle begins demanding every dollar you make. From the outside, it looks like success. On the inside, nothing has really changed. You still depend on the next paycheck, the next bonus, the next promotion. Money was supposed to create freedom. Instead, it created a more expensive version of the same life. The wealthy often approach this differently. Before asking, "What can this money buy?" they ask, "What can this money build?" That single question changes everything. Instead of seeing money as something that disappears, they begin looking for ways to make it produce more value. Not because they never enjoy life, but because they understand something powerful. Every dollar has two possible futures. It can be consumed, or it can be employed. Once it is spent, its work is finished. Once it is invested wisely, its work may only be beginning. This is why wealthy people often appear patient. They are not just thinking about today, they are thinking about what today's decisions will create years from now. That kind of thinking requires discipline, because spending creates immediate satisfaction. Building creates delayed rewards. The human mind naturally prefers the immediate. That is why treating money as a tool requires intention. You must be willing to sacrifice a small pleasure today for a greater freedom tomorrow. And that is not simply a financial decision. It is a psychological one. Perhaps this is why two people with the same income can live completely different lives. One spends every raise, the other invests every opportunity. One asks, "How much did I make?" The other asks, "How hard is my money working?" Over time, those questions produce very different futures. Money itself has never been the deciding factor. The way people think about money has, and once you begin seeing money as a tool instead of a destination, you start asking a different kind of question. Not how much you earn, but whether what you earn is becoming lasting wealth. Income is not wealth. One of the greatest financial illusions is believing that a high income automatically creates wealth. It doesn't. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. The difference may sound simple, but it separates two completely different ways of living. Imagine two people. The first earns an impressive salary. Every month, more money enters their account than most people could imagine. From the outside, they appear successful. They drive a luxury car, live in an expensive home, wear designer clothes. Their lifestyle suggests abundance. Now imagine another person. Their income is far more modest. They don't attract much attention. Their car is practical. Their home is comfortable rather than extravagant. They rarely feel the need to impress anyone. Years pass. The first person continues earning more, but spends almost everything they make. The second quietly saves, invests, acquires assets, allows time to do its work. Eventually, the person who looked ordinary becomes financially free, while the person who looked wealthy remains dependent on every paycheck. Appearances can be remarkably deceptive because income measures how much money passes through your hands. Wealth measures how much remains working for you. This is why so many people become trapped in an endless cycle. Every increase in income creates an increase in lifestyle. A better phone, a larger house, more expensive vacations. The rewards are immediate. The consequences are delayed without realizing it. They begin running faster, only to stay in the same place. The wealthy often interrupt this cycle when their income grows. Their first instinct is not always to spend more. It is to strengthen their future, to increase ownership, to create assets that continue producing value long after today's paycheck has been spent. This requires a very different relationship with money. It means learning to delay gratification, to understand that every dollar spent today carries an opportunity cost. Every purchase answers an invisible question. Do I want this now? Or do I want greater freedom later? Most financial decisions are really decisions about time. You've exchanged today's comfort for tomorrow's possibilities or tomorrow's freedom. For today's pleasure, neither choice is automatically right or wrong. The important question is whether the decision is intentional. The wealthy rarely believe every desire deserves immediate satisfaction. Not because they dislike enjoying life, but because they understand something powerful. Freedom is purchased long before it is experienced. It is built quietly, one disciplined decision at a time, one investment at a time, one unnecessary expense avoided at a time. These moments rarely feel significant, yet over years, they become the difference between dependence and independence. This is why wealth often grows in ways that attract very little attention. It is not always dramatic. It does not always announce itself. It grows patiently, almost invisibly, until one day, the results become impossible to ignore. Perhaps that is why truly wealthy people often look surprisingly ordinary. They are less interested in looking successful and more interested in becoming secure, because they understand the truth that many people spend a lifetime overlooking. Looking wealthy and being wealthy are two very different things. And once you understand that difference, you begin asking a different question. Not, how can I earn more? But, how can I make what I earn create a life of lasting freedom? That question marks the beginning of real wealth. Rich people buy time. Ask someone what the most valuable asset in the world is, and many will answer money, gold, real estate, stocks. But every one of those things has something in common. They can be lost, and they can be earned again. Time cannot. Every person receives the same 24 hours each day. The billionaire, the student, the entrepreneur, the employee. No amount of wealth can purchase a 25th hour. Perhaps that is why people who build lasting wealth often think differently about time than they do about money. They understand that money is renewable. Time is not. Imagine two people. The first spends every hour trying to save a small amount of money, driving across town for a tiny discount, doing every task themselves, refusing to invest in anything that could make them more productive. They save money, but slowly lose something far more valuable. Hours, days, years. The second person asks a different question. Is this the best use of my time? Sometimes the answer is no. So they automate, delegate, invest in tools, learn skills that allow 1 hour of effort to produce greater results. Too many people. This looks expensive, but they are not buying convenience. They are buying back their time. And with that time, they can create more value. The wealthy often understand a simple principle. Money should solve problems, not create them. If a small financial investment allows you to recover hundreds of valuable hours over the coming years, it may be one of the best investments you ever make. This is why many successful people willingly pay for education, technology, professional advice, or skilled assistance, not because they cannot do those things themselves, but because they understand the value of focus. Every hour spent on something that someone else could do is an hour that cannot be spent doing what only you can do. Time is where wealth is truly created. Not because time automatically produces money, but because focused time creates value, and value attracts opportunity. This is also why wealthy people tend to think in decades instead of days. They understand that 1 hour invested in learning today can save thousands of hours of mistakes tomorrow. One thoughtful decision today can produce rewards for years. That is the quiet power of long-term thinking. Most people ask, how much does this cost? The wealthy often ask, what will this cost me in time? Those are completely different questions. One measures money, the other measures life. Perhaps this is why some people remain endlessly busy, yet never move closer to freedom. They confuse activity with progress. They fill every hour, but rarely ask whether those hours are creating the future they actually want. The goal is not to become busy. The goal is to become intentional, to recognize that every hour you spend is an investment. The only question is, What kind of return will it produce? Because whether you realize it or not, you are constantly exchanging your time for something. Money, knowledge, relationships, distraction, or regret. Choose wisely for the wealthy. The ultimate purpose of money is not simply to own more things. It is to own more of their time. And once you begin seeing time as your greatest asset, another dangerous habit becomes impossible to ignore. The habit of spending money to impress people who are never paying as much attention as you imagined. The psychology of consumption. Walk through any shopping mall, scroll through any online store, or spend a few minutes on social media, and you'll notice something interesting. Very few things are advertised for what they actually are. A watch is rarely sold as a device that tells time. A car is rarely sold as transportation. A designer jacket is rarely sold as fabric. Instead, they are sold as symbols. Success, status, confidence, power, belonging. The message is subtle. Buy this, and you'll become that. Over time, many people stop buying products. They begin buying identities. There is nothing wrong with enjoying beautiful things. Comfort has value. Quality has value. Celebration has value. The problem begins when purchases are no longer driven by purpose, but by comparison. Comparison quietly changes the question. Instead of asking, "Do I need this?" we begin asking, "What will people think if I have this?" That single shift has emptied more bank accounts than most economic crises. Because comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone with a newer car, a larger house, a more expensive watch, a more luxurious vacation. If your peace depends on having more than someone else, peace will always remain just out of reach. The wealthy often understand something different. They know that every dollar spent on appearance is a dollar that cannot be invested in freedom. That doesn't mean they never enjoy their money. It means they understand the difference between value and validation. Value improves your life. Validation depends on other people's opinions. One grows your future. The other disappears the moment the applause ends. This is one of the quietest traps in modern life. Lifestyle inflation. The moment income rises, expectations rise with it. The apartment becomes a bigger house. The reliable car becomes the luxury model. Simple pleasures become expensive habits. From the outside, everything looks better. But underneath, financial pressure quietly grows. Many people don't become poor because they earn too little. They become trapped because every increase in income creates an even greater increase in spending. The wealthy often resist this temptation, not because they lack ambition, but because they understand a principle that rarely receives attention. Looking wealthy and becoming wealthy require completely different behaviors. One is built on visible spending, the other is built on invisible discipline. Real wealth is often remarkably quiet. It doesn't need constant attention. It doesn't rely on approval. It grows patiently while everyone else is busy trying to appear successful. Perhaps the greatest financial freedom comes when you no longer feel the need to prove your success to strangers. When your decisions are guided by your goals, not by someone else's expectations. Because every purchase asks a question. Am I buying this to improve my life or to improve my image? The answer to that question shapes far more than your bank account. It shapes your future, your habits, your priorities, and ultimately, the life you build. The remarkable thing is that once you stop chasing appearances, you begin noticing opportunities that were hidden before. Money that once disappeared into unnecessary status can now be directed toward ownership, investment, creation, freedom. And that is where the mindset of the wealthy begins to separate itself most clearly. Not in what they earn, not even in what they spend, but in how far into the future they are willing to think. Long-term thinking wins There is a habit that quietly separates those who build wealth from those who only earn it. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. And it is not working longer hours. It is the ability to think beyond today. Modern life trains us to expect immediate results, instant deliveries, instant entertainment, instant communication. The message is everywhere. If something is valuable, you should have it now. But wealth has always followed a different rhythm. It grows slowly, patiently, almost invisibly. A tree does not become strong in a single season. It grows ring by ring, year after year. Its greatest strength is hidden beneath the surface long before anyone notices its height. Wealth is much the same. The most important financial decisions rarely produce dramatic results overnight. They look almost disappointing. One investment, one business improvement, one skill learned, one unnecessary expense avoided. Each decision feels too small to matter. But time has a remarkable ability to magnify small decisions. That is why patience is so valuable. Not because waiting is magical, but because consistent decisions become extraordinary when given enough time. Most people abandon good habits because they cannot yet see the results. The wealthy often continue because they understand that the results are still being built. This way of thinking changes everything. Instead of asking, "How much can I make this month?" they begin asking, "Where will this decision place me 10 years from now?" That question is powerful because it shifts your attention away from immediate rewards toward lasting outcomes. It becomes easier to ignore temporary excitement, easier to resist emotional decisions, easier to remain disciplined when progress appears slow. Perhaps this is why lasting wealth often looks boring. It is built through repetition, through consistency, through doing simple things well for a very long time. There are no dramatic headlines about someone who invested patiently for 20 years. No applause for the person who quietly improved their skills every single day. No celebration for the family that consistently lived below their means. Yet these ordinary decisions have created more lasting wealth than countless attempts to become rich overnight. The world celebrates dramatic success. It rarely notices quiet discipline, but quiet discipline is usually where real wealth begins. Think about the people who seem financially secure. Many did not arrive there through one perfect opportunity. They arrived there by making hundreds of sensible decisions, each one too small to impress anyone. Yet, together, they transformed an ordinary income into extraordinary freedom. This is the hidden power of long-term thinking. You stop asking, "What feels good today?" and begin asking, "What will I be grateful for years from now?" That question changes the way you spend, the way you save, the way you invest, the way you learn. Even the way you measure success, because success is no longer judged by today's possessions. It is measured by tomorrow's possibilities. And perhaps that is the greatest financial advantage of all. To understand that wealth is rarely created by one brilliant decision. It is created by thousands of ordinary decisions, repeated long after most people have lost patience. Once you understand that, you realize that wealth is not simply a matter of numbers. It is the natural result of a particular way of thinking, a mindset that values ownership over appearance, freedom over consumption, and responsibility over impulse. The wealth mindset. By now, one thing has become clear. The greatest difference between those who build wealth and those who spend their lives chasing it is rarely found in their bank accounts. It is found in the way they think. Money is only the visible result. The invisible foundation is mindset, not positive thinking, not wishful thinking, but disciplined thinking. A wealthy mindset begins with responsibility. It refuses to blame luck for every setback or circumstances for every missed opportunity. Instead, it asks, "What can I control?" That question is powerful because it shifts attention away from excuses and toward action. Every successful investor, every successful entrepreneur, every successful builder has faced uncertainty, None of them control the economy, the market, or the future. But they learn to master something far more important: their own decisions. This is another quiet difference. Most people focus on outcomes. The wealthy often focus on processes. They know they cannot control every result, but they can control whether they continue learning, whether they remain disciplined, whether they keep making thoughtful decisions. Ironically, this makes them more resilient when life becomes difficult, because their confidence is not built on always winning. It is built on knowing they can adapt. Another quality often overlooked is ownership. The wealthy naturally look for ways to own rather than merely consume. Ownership creates leverage. It allows today's effort to continue producing value tomorrow. Whether that ownership is a business, an investment, a valuable skill, or intellectual property, the principle remains the same. Create something that continues working long after today's effort is finished. That way of thinking changes the purpose of work itself. Work is no longer only about earning an income. It becomes a way of creating assets, building value, expanding freedom. This mindset also changes how failure is viewed. Most people fear losing money. The wealthy fear losing lessons. A failed investment may cost money. A lesson ignored can cost a lifetime. That is why experience often becomes one of the greatest financial assets a person can possess. Every mistake carries information. Every setback reveals weaknesses. Every challenge exposes something that can be improved. Those who continue learning continue growing. Those who stop learning often stop growing long before they stop working. Perhaps this is why wealth has always been about more than finance. It is about becoming the kind of person capable of creating value again and again. Because fortunes can disappear, markets can change, businesses can fail, but a disciplined mind, a curious mind, a resilient mind can build again. That is real security. Not the size of a bank account, but the confidence that your thinking can create value wherever you are. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The wealthy do not simply think differently because they have money. More often, they have money because they learned to think differently long before it arrived. That is why lasting wealth begins long before the first investment, long before the first successful business, long before financial freedom. It begins the moment a person decides to value responsibility over excuses, ownership over consumption, patience over impulse, and long-term value over short-term appearance. Because when your thinking changes, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your future begins to change with them. Money has always fascinated humanity. People spend entire lifetimes chasing it, worrying about it, dreaming of it, measuring themselves by it. But perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about wealth is believing that money itself is the answer. Throughout this documentary, we've explored a different idea. The greatest difference between those who build lasting wealth and those who spend their lives chasing it is not found in the amount of money they possess. It is found in the way they think. They see money as a tool, not a trophy. They value freedom over appearance, ownership over consumption, patience over impulse, and long-term value over short-term satisfaction. These are not financial tricks. They are ways of seeing the world. Because every financial decision begins long before money changes hands. It begins in the mind. A purchase begins as a thought. An investment begins as a belief. A business begins as an idea. Before wealth appears in your bank account, it first appears in the quality of your decisions. That is why lasting wealth cannot be built on emotion alone. Excitement fades, motivation comes and goes, discipline remains. The people who create lasting wealth are rarely perfect. They make mistakes. They experience losses. They face uncertainty, but they continue learning. They continue adapting, and they continue making decisions with the future in mind. That is their true advantage. Not that they always know the right answer, but that they have developed a way of thinking that keeps improving over time. Imagine where your life could be 10 years from now. If every financial decision became just a little wiser, if every purchase became more intentional, if every opportunity was evaluated with patience instead of impulse, small decisions, repeated consistently, can reshape an entire future. Perhaps that is the real secret of wealth. Not one extraordinary opportunity, but hundreds of ordinary decisions made with extraordinary discipline. So before you ask how to earn more money, ask yourself a more important question. Am I becoming the kind of person who can build and keep wealth? Because money can be given, money can be inherited. Money can even be won, but lasting wealth must be sustained. And that depends far less on what's in your wallet than on what's in your mind. The rich don't think differently because they are wealthy. More often, they became wealthy because they learned to think differently. So don't chase money alone. Build wisdom, build discipline, build patience, build value. Because when those qualities become part of who you are, wealth stops being something you pursue. It becomes something you're prepared to create.